But that's a missing thing.
I got it.
Have some knowledge.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge, to our noon hybrid meeting. So glad you are all here. So grateful to see everybody. And for those out there in Cyberland, welcome to our meeting as well. Please do put your cell phones on silent, if not turn them off. Help us out with that. And we'll start off with the invocation led by David Beach.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you as an assembly focused on serving others and learning more about our community, state, and nation. We ask for your wisdom and discernment as we contemplate the many complex dilemmas troubling society. Help us to remember that you are a relational God and that you intend for us to experience you more fully with each passing day and to recognize the love and grace you have bestowed upon us as your children. May we focus on treating our neighbor as we would want to be treated and seek opportunities to extend that same grace love to others. God, let your will be done, for you are all sovereign and you have our best interests at heart. We pray for our political leaders, our civil servants, our armed forces, and our country. We also pray for the poor, the sick, the hungry, the indigent, and all in need, that they may receive the care and resources necessary to thrive. Please bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies so that we may more effectively do thy service. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And Mary Johnson will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Phil Jubin will lead us in the four-way test.
Would you join me as we recite the four-way test? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will and better friendships will be beneficial to all concerned?
See, I told y'all last week when I screwed this up, we'd get better. And we okay, we have a new member introduction today. New member introduction, John Grubb. Okay, Bill.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Peters, and we're delighted to be here today to introduce our newest Rotarian. It's my privilege to introduce Rotarian Jill Rigby Garner. Jill currently serves as executive and creative director of a nonprofit organization located in Baton Rouge called Manners of the Heart. She founded Manners of the Heart in 2002. Has a unique mission to reawaken respect in our society for the sake of the next generation. Now, she's a nationally recognized expert, having appeared on CBS, early shows, CNN, and over 350 radio shows. Locally, she promotes respect with a daily broadcast through the iHeart Network. In addition, she's the author of several books and articles on the subject of respect. Public schools and businesses use her curriculum throughout the parish and the state to instruct students and employees in respect. So when I asked Jill, would you consider letting me nominate you as a member of Rotary? She answered with a resounding yes. That enthusiasm, that innate enthusiasm, coupled with her life's focus of serving society through advancing respect among all people, complements Rotary's four-way test. Fellow Rotarians, please welcome national respect expert and our newest Rotarian, Jill Garner.
Now I'd like to call John Grubb to welcome our guest.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see everybody in person. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, William Plick, who's guest of Barbara Otan. Y'all please stand when your name is called. Stan Montalero, guest of Charlene Montalero. Lauren Papillon, guest of Daryl Papillon. Nydia Koenig, guest of Larry Koenig. Denise Brown, guest of Liz Hampton. Ryan Gisclair, guest of Mawai Taki. Danny Lee, guest of Stephanie Cargill. Chandra Stacy, guest of Stephanie Cargill. And Kelly Welch, guest of Stephanie Cargill. Brandon Simon, guest of Stephen Brookshire Jr. And Hollis Randolph, guest of Tom Randolph. Welcome to everyone. Thank you.
Okay, today's head table, my right, your left. Mary Johnson, Deputy Director of Human Resources, Louisiana House of Representatives, retired. Bill Peters, Small Business Consultant, Peters Wealth Advisors, LLC, also retired. Jill Garner, our newest member. Philip Jubin, President, the Jubin Insurance Group, LLC. I'm Haggai Davis, I'm your club president. Retired Lieutenant General Russel Honoré, who will be more formally introduced in a minute. Daryl Papillon, who is a past president, a partner with Walters Papillon Thomas Collins. David Beach, CEO of Huey Angelina Wilson Foundation. Your head table. We have a few announcements. First one up is we want to recognize Jay Brown. Jay, come on up, please. This past week, Jay was awarded the Service Above Self, which is one of the highest recognitions Rotary has. Jay, this is for you. The Rotary International's highest honor for individual Rotarians. This award recognizes up to 150 Rotarians annually out of 1.3 million who have demonstrated their commitment to helping others by volunteering their time and talents with exemplary humanitarian service in any form and at any level, with an emphasis on personal volunteer efforts and active involvement in helping other members of Rotary through Rotary. Jay Brown. Congratulations again, Jay. That's awesome. A couple of more announcements. The Mississippi River pollution, plastic pollution initiative to get rid of trash out of our river and it's still going on. It's an ever going on. This is not going to stop this weekend. If you've not downloaded the app, please do so. I found some trash. There was a plastic bag rolling across my front yard this morning. I picked that up and I marked it on the app. I mean, it's that simple. Help get plastic out of the system. So pick it up, use the app. It's easy to do. Next thing, the 21-22 committees. We are kicking back off committees. We're back at Rotary. So now this year's going to need some committee people and committee members, committee chairs. Please do sign up for the committees of your choice. Next Wednesday, our speaker, Dr. Kay Brumley, will be speaking to us about the update on education in Louisiana. You are all certainly welcome to come back here, and we will also always be available on Facebook and YouTube Live at 12:15. So now we're going to do the door prize. We are doing a drawing for people who've been for the last several meetings. If you'll pay attention to the wheel up here, we are giving away a really nice bottle of wine. Let it rip. Okay. We're not drawing names out of a hat or anything. We're letting the random wheel. Scott Godin. Scott here. All right. Scott, well, Scott, if you're out there, we have a bottle of wine waiting for you. And we're going to do this again twice. We're going to do it in the middle of May and then in the end of May. So we're doing our best to try and encourage people to come back, and you know, your name is automatically enrolled in the deal when you attend the meeting. So if you're out there, come to Rotary, and maybe you get a bottle of wine. So that being done, Darryl Papillon will now introduce our program.
I'm here to introduce the program, but before we introduce the program, you know, Haggai, unlike a lot of Rotary presidents, hasn't had the practice of being at the microphone and hosting the meeting the way other presidents have. And so, you know, we got to take care of Haggai. And today, I understand, is Haggai's wedding anniversary. And before the club meets again, Haggai is going to celebrate for, I don't know the how manyth time, his 39th birthday. And so can we give our president, Haggai Davis, a round of applause and give him a happy birthday? United States Army Lieutenant General retired Russel Honoré, that's 3 stars, was the 8th of 12 children. He was raised on a farm in Point Capee Parish, and from there he went to Southern University. He was an ROTC cadet there at Southern, and after finishing that, he went into the United States Army as an infantry officer in 1971. During his 37 years in the Army, he held a variety of positions and commands. He commanded combat troops overseas in operations Desert Shield and Storm. And between 1999 and 2000, he served as the Vice Director of Operations for the Joint Staff, where he supported the Department of Defense planning and response for Hurricane Floyd, as well as the United States military's response to the flooding in Venezuela and Mozambique in 1999 and 2000. In 2004, General Honoré became the 33rd Commanding General of the United States First Army. In that position, he coordinated the U.S. military's preparedness and responses to Hurricanes Charlie, Francis, Ivan, and Jean. You know, all this disaster training was going to come in handy because when Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast in 2005, our own cigar-chomping, hard-charging Russel Honoré was designated as the commander of Joint Task Force Katrina. He is, of course, widely credited for turning the situation around in New Orleans because of his vast experience, and he was given a great deal of credit for his no-nonsense management style. Following his retirement from the military in 2008, General Honoré said that he would spend the second half of his life creating a culture of preparedness in America, and he has written and spoken widely on this subject. Earlier this year, in January, the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives announced that General Honoré would lead an investigation into the security failures on January 6th at the United States Capitol. General Honoré is a recipient of so many military and civilian awards that we literally do not have time to talk about them today. Our very own Russel Honoré lives in Baton Rouge with his wife, Beverly, and we welcome him and ask that you give him a warm Rotary welcome.
Well, it's good to be home. I would tell you my wife would be here, but she had to go get her hair fixed. She's traveling tomorrow. One of them post-COVID luxuries we now get to enjoy, as it is to be here with you today. And actually, when the team at Rotary asked me to do this, I enthusiastically said yes, because I thought I'd be doing it virtual from the house. And little did I know, with the calendar change, I'm here today. You know, it's hard. Some 2,000 years ago, a guy figured out it's hard to preach in your own village. I go all over the country speaking, but this is one of the toughest gigs I ever get when you speak about people who really know you. And there we were, as we start our stories in the Army, there we were on the 6th of January as we saw things unfold at our Capitol. And I tell you where I was on my back porch. I was about to go feed Big Red. And I started watching this assembly of people expressing their First Amendment on the Capitol. I said, no, I better stay here. So I moved out to the porch and brought 3 or 4 cigars with me and some strong coffee, and spent the afternoon watching this unfold. And much to my surprise, after writing a couple of ugly tweets I shouldn't have written, which Tucker Carlson reminded y'all of, a week later, I got a call from the secretary for the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And I said, what do they call him out this time? And she said, the Speaker would like to speak with you. She wanted to know if you would come up here and do an investigation to look at what we need to do immediately to prevent this from happening again. And would you have time to talk to the Speaker? Well, yes, I've got time to talk to the Speaker. I'm out here drawing my retirement, drinking cigars. Yeah, I can talk to the Speaker. So within an hour later, she called, and she asked me, would I be willing to do this? And she said, how we ought to tag this? And I said, we ought to tag it as we're going to look at the process, procedures, command and control to ensure that this does not happen again. And those became the legacy words tied in our mission. That the next day she went on national television. And again, I was sitting there smoking a cigar, drinking coffee on my back porch, and she had it at a weekly news conference and read that as a mission. And that became the standard bearer for our mission. When we got the mission, many people thought our job was to look at how it happened. That's the job of the Justice Department and the FBI to figure out how and who. Our job is to figure out what actions we need to take now in those areas that I mentioned. Now, my only agreement I had with the Speaker was I'm coming with one suit and one sport coat. I'm coming in work clothes because I'm not looking for a damn job. I'm not coming to impress nobody. And we're going to tell it like we see it. And the first assessment when you get a task like this going to the Capitol, the visibility there, is to hire a bunch of people smarter than you. So I started going down my list, and I called the smarter people I knew, and they said no, but try this guy. Because they too were either health for other reasons weren't available, but they gave me good names and people who I'd known and who had done good things on the broad stage that could deal with this. So there we go, 16 of us, myself and 2 more lieutenant generals a former sergeant at arms in the Senate, as well as several SES, senior executive service civilians from areas like the Secret Service. So we were blessed with a good team of people. Our recommendations included the following. I'm going to read those off to you. Then I'd like to engage in questions with you. Our recommendation number one was to develop the Capitol Police to effectively identify, assess, and communicate threats. They will not process an intelligence. The intelligence that they did get was not handed off to the rank and file officers in a timely manner. We made recommendations to increase the size of the intelligence section of the Capitol Police, which has about 2,300 people total, 1,800 plus in uniform. And that needed to be fixed. And if you watch the hearing from the Inspector General, he also emphasized intelligence. It's almost like they were waiting for a envelope to show up like you watch in the movies, and somebody opened it and you see the top of it and say top secret in big letters. They come in. That didn't happen and they weren't ready. So there's another team looking at if there were any other factors involved there. The next thing was increase the officers in the Capitol Police. We recommended a plus up of 854 officers. They currently have 1,800 plus. Of the 1,800 plus, they are authorized now. 233 are short from attrition. And then last year, during the COVID, they did not get to run officers through academy. So at the time we turned our report in on 5 March, there were 233 officers short. The other dilemma they have is with many police or departments. Last year, they ran 720,000 hours of overtime. That's a problem because those officers are spending 6, some 7 days a week, working up to 12 hours a day. That does not give them time for training, spending time with their families, or even going to the gym. They are forced under stress. Those recommendations would cost about $1.1 million a year in real just the labor costs. The other thing we recommend is amend the authorities of the Capitol Police in extreme situations where the Capitol Police could request assistance from the National Guard without going through the Sergeant at Arms in the House and the Senate, as well as the architect of the Capitol, which makes up the police board. We think when the police need help, they need to have the authority to call for it without going through some board. That board can decide what side the parking meters are going to be on and that type of stuff. When it comes to police, the police need to do what police do. And we think that significantly hampered their ability to keep people out of the Capitol that day. We recommended the establishment of a quick reaction force by the National Guard. I did talk to our Louisiana delegation a week into this, Mr. Scalise, Graves, and Johnson, and Senator Cassidy. They all supported what we were doing, and we did get several questions from them about the use of the National Guard. At the time I was there, we had some 20,000 National Guard there when I arrived. When we left, there were less than 2,000. But the quick reaction force would be positioned at the National Guard Armory. Now, this is where we got into a lot of tussle when I went to committees and when I spoke to the minority leader of the House, Mr. McCarthy. We had to have a drink for me to tell you about that story. But there were a lot of issues about wanting to assign National Guard. After 9/11, we put 250 National Guardsmen at the Capitol for 2 years. Why is that a problem now? The National Guard been defending the Capitol since 1840. In 1814, when the National Guard wasn't there, the British Army came in and burned the Capitol. Not only burned the Capitol, they burned the White House. So the National Guard is a part of the solution. They're a part of our National Guard. The dilemma with the National Guard in Washington, D.C. is Washington, D.C. don't have a governor, which means the authority to deploy the Guard goes back to the Secretary of the Army. Now, I'm not advocating, please don't quote me on that D.C. need a governor. I'm not saying that. I ain't getting into that. But the fact that they have to go through the Secretary of the Army to deploy the Guard, National Guard, that's where the investigation will continue. You'll hear more about that. But the QRF is a worthy thing after 9/11. Nobody worried about money. They put 21 F-16s at Andrews Air Force Base after 9/11. They're manned by 600 National Guardsmen. They stay there year-round. Anytime you go into Andrews, there's 3 F-16s with the cockpit up, and the pilots are in their uniform. And there's an air defense battery. You won't see it. You shouldn't see it. That's in D.C. that's manned by the National Guard. But when I started talking about these ground troops being there to back up the Capitol, that got a lot of pushback from some people. And right now, these recommendations are under consideration in the House of Representatives. They will be formed in what they call a supplemental. And the estimate cost of this supplemental is about $2 billion. I went over to the Secretary of Defense when we were talking about the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force from the National Guard. And I had a previous relationship with him. The last time I saw him, he called me sir. He was a colonel and I was a 2-star. And he remembered that, so he agreed to see me. And I went in to see him. The only difference this time, he was flanked by lawyers. And I said, we need a quick reaction force. And he looked at me and he said, first time he's ever done that, he looked at me right in the eye and said, Russ, tell the speaker to hire more police. And I mumbled something and he said, what he said? I said, the speaker give you $800 billion a year. And if the speaker want a damn QRF, look like to me, you ought to give her a QRF. When you get $800 billion a year, and we talking about $100 million, look like that should not be an issue, sir. I did not get invited back to his office. But he's a good guy. And we need to have more police to be able to cover the dignitaries as they go back and forth, because more of them are getting more threats. 1,004 more threats to legislators as they're going home and getting in their district. And many of them are traumatized. I spoke to them in committee meetings as well as in private. They are traumatized from what happened that day. And you see them talk on television, and many of them perceive their threats a lot different because they had not experienced that type of trauma before. The last thing we presented was my upbringing as a farmer, growing up in Point Capee and an ag student at Southern University, is when you don't know what to do, you got to make some stuff up. So I called the Corps engineers. Always use good science. And my friends at the Corps engineers sent me some fine engineers over there. And I explained to them what we wanted, fencing. But we wanted the type of fence that said, I want Disneyland fencing. They looked at me and they didn't get the metaphor. I said, you know, when you go to Disneyland, you really go where the walkway tell you. There's no way for you to just say, well, I'm going to take the shortcut to my car. Because you go and there's a brush and there's a big old fence there. Or there's a lagoon you can't get through. I say, we want to use science, technology, engineering, and landscaping to have fences introduced to the Capitol ground Because the mission of all the legislators, we want public access and we want security. They want the kids running around the Capitol with their picnic basket like they did when they were young. At the same time, they don't want a repeat of 1/6. So that being said, we made an application to do some fencing in that will literally come out of the ground on demand, as opposed to having that razor wire of what they call Baghdad in DC with all the wire hanging around the Capitol. We think we can do both. Every legislator, both parties, we want the House, people's house, to be open. Well, you give them other 833 officers, you put this innovative fence in, it's going to cost a lot of money. Why you worry about money? We've been building buildings in Afghanistan and Iraq for years. We give some of our closest allies, one of them get $10 million a day, the other one get $11 million every day. And you worried about spending money on protecting the Capitol? The Capitol is a target. And if the Capitol don't run, our democracy don't run. And the old proverbial thing, it was confusing. And like our own Capitol, it's kind of that idea, if you like sausage, don't go watch it being made. And you can get so close to it, you can smell it when the questions were asked, because many of them were loaded. So I will pause here. How many minutes we got left?
Oh, about 15.
All right. And I'd like to open the questions. Yes, ma'am.
To what extent was cooperation or lack of cooperation among the various agencies a problem?
That
Repeat the question for me.
the question is, what was the impact of the lack of cooperation among agencies have on the 1/6 event? I saw most of it during the intelligence piece, the collaboration, and the police would say they're consumers of intelligence. And the FBI and the other agencies are the producers of intelligence. At the end of the day, the system didn't work. And I, like you, watch the FBI director all but admit they missed the ball. But he didn't get a call. Now, that's strange. That's strange. The rest of that story had not been told, I believe. Because of the investigation that's ongoing, I think by the congressional committees who are going to call back in members from the interagency, they want to know where the Homeland Security guys. Secretary Wolf was in Israel telling them goodbye. What in the hell is he doing in Israel? He's got 2 weeks left in office. He's traveling abroad. He's in charge of Homeland Security. That's why we created Homeland Security, to make sure we didn't have another 9/11. And the multitude of officers we've got in Homeland Security, he could have done something. He could have made a call. But Homeland Security was silent. FBI was silent. And the Capitol Police were left on their own. There were members of Congress, from what they were watching on the news and what they were seeing on the internet, told their staff to stay home. And they did not come to the office that day. So we have a lot less people in the Capitol because congressional leaders told their staffs to stay home. They did not want them to get muddled up in whatever events that might be happening, public events around the Capitol. But I think the rest of that story will be told in the subsequent months, ma'am, and it will be in form of some of the investigations that Congress are going to call members in under oath. Like the Defense Department still have some questions to answer in relationship to when the National Guard was asked for and why did it take that amount of time to get them approved. Now, I'm a big fan of the National Guard. I spent my last 4 years in the Army training them, and both of my wife's sons Both of our sons are in the family business, and they're in the National Guard. So we're very proud of being in association with the National Guard. One of them's forward deployed in some unforeseeable place right now, and the other one is in Indiana, another place I wouldn't pick to go to, but that's where he is. And that's what they do. So it's not an issue of with the Guard itself, it's the command authority, because that special relationship. See, any governor could deploy their National Guard anytime they want. The governor wake up tomorrow morning and said, I don't like the way these streets look. Guard, fall in. He's the supreme commander of the National Guard in the state. That is not the case in D.C. because D.C. is not a state. And when the founding fathers along the way, as they created the rules, they put the National Guard under the Secretary of Defense and the National Guard headquarters in Washington to process the requests. And they act on behalf of the president. When you hear the White House talking about deploying the National Guard for civil disturbance, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The White House has no authority to deploy the National Guard unless they institute the Insurrection Act. That's the only authority they have, and that has to be done in collaboration with the governor or at the request of a governor. So that's not White House business to deploy the National Guard inside a particular state. The White House will tell the Pentagon to fund the National Guard if it's so requested by the governor. But that's the province of your governors to run your National Guard. And sometimes I get confused on TV about the White House is maneuvering. Nuh-uh. The only way he can maneuver that, he's got to mobilize them. And the governor has to agree to it. Unless it's an extreme situation. The last time you saw that, and the only time you saw it, is when the Rodney King riots happened. The president mobilized National Guard in conjunction with the governor of California, and they put a federal judge out there in charge. Yes, sir.
With this expanded Capitol Police force, are you going to review their weapons and armor, and are you going to look at their use of force and use of deadly force directly?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. We recommended 2 platoons of civil disturbance units be created that are dedicated to civil disturbance, and they have the proper equipment. They did not have the minimum equipment for all the officers. Not all the officers had hard helmets. Right, they didn't have that. When you saw the DC Metropolitan Police show up, they came with their body armor. But much of the Capitol Police, their equipment was stored in a bus. Here's the problem in the Capitol. You got 8 buildings there. When they developed this, it started off with a few hundred police. They are very protective of the architect of the Capitol. So the idea of you want to take a room that's named and turn it into a place to store equipment is unthought of. Because you got to go through the curator. I didn't know there was such a person. When we were talking about the windows, and the curator sits there and she's taking a note here. One of the decisions they had delayed when I was there was that before 1/6 happened, they had a contract issued to repaint the doors on the Capitol. Not make them stronger, but to paint them, stain them. And for 90 days after the contract was issued, the committee, working with the curator, could not decide on the tone of the stain. When they say they're the house of the biggest deliberative body, they are, folks. They discuss everything. And that's one of the dilemmas we got. Yes, sir, that's inclusive. We also, they needed to update the K-9 platoon, and we recommend that they have a horse platoon, much like the New Orleans police have. Yes, sir.
Is there anything like a situation room in the Capitol so that they can deal with it better?
Yes, sir, it's very small, though. It is not representative of the space that they need for the complexity of what they have. The Capitol draw their funds through annual budget request cycles. So, when you work from the government and they said, okay, your target for this year is $1 billion. So you get your team together, whatever agency you are, and say, well, this year we need to buy laptops. So somebody go and they put a request in and they're going to spend $200 million to buy everybody new laptops. They put it into a requisition. They put it out as RFP. Somebody from, let's pick on Indiana. Indiana bid on it because their senator told them, hey, that bid's coming out for those laptops. So the laptops show up about 8 months later. You with me? By that time, you're working on the next budget. So you say, well, we could use some new cameras and some new, so you put in your new equipment request for $200 million. So that year you buy cameras, right? The next year you said, $200 million, we're going to buy some sensors. The problem is, by the time that stuff show up, it's over a 3-4 year. What happened with technology when you're buying it that way? It don't match. You got .0 or 6.5 or whatever that juju is. It don't match. And that's the problem they had that day. The radios, many of them did match because they sequentially do upgrading of their system. All of you understand that we've grown up in the IT world. And the government just didn't organize that way in the Capitol to fix that. If the Pentagon's fixed out to do it, just tell them to do it, is what I told them. You give them $800 billion a year. They ought to come over and shine your shoes. If you want somebody to synchronize your IT, just tell the Pentagon. Tell them. But there's a thin line between the branches of government that I had never experienced until that day. I knew people in the White House, in the executive branch. I knew people in the Department of Defense. I knew a few people in Justice, and I was working for the legislative branch. It is not an invisible line, folks. It is a brick wall. When I called the Department of Defense to speak to the Chief of Staff of the Army, we had to write a note to request through the Secretary of Defense that I could speak with the Secretary of the Army because the legislative branch who I was working for don't have authority to go directly without approval. Hello. You want to know how 1-6 happened? Hello. And it'll happen again if we don't fix that. I think time we got one more question. Yeah. Yes, sir.
It's a statement. To quote a local hero, they must be stuck on stupid in DC, right?
Voila. But I would not want to work there. And my hat's off to those who sacrifice, in particular staffers. Some of you are friends, relatives, and some of you may have done that yourself. They have hard work. Because after under those bills, they're spending nights and days trying to put the language together. Yes, sir?
General, are you going to have any continuing involvement?
My engagement now is from encouraging the Congress to approve the supplemental. And the way to do that, I no longer work for the legislature, for the House Sergeant at Arms. I do it through media engagement, reinforcing the fact that the supplemental need to be informed. And I think we got one more question, and I don't want to run out of time. Yes, sir.
General, considering the way the 26 turned out, would you assume, had the commander-in-chief gone on TV at about 9:30 in the morning and told us to stand down, that there would have been a different outcome?
It would have made a difference, I think. I think it would have made a difference if you told them that early in the morning to stand down. But from what we say, again, that wasn't my job. I see through the lens of you and then investigate that there were people that came there with some intent to do what they tried to do, and a lot of people got caught in the middle that came there as a First Amendment event. But I hope it doesn't happen again. I'm honored to have participated, a boy from Lakeland, Louisiana, a graduate of the Louisiana Public School System, Rosenwald High School in New Roads, and St. Alma Elementary. It was an honor to be in that Capitol and not only representing the state of Louisiana, but representing my family in such a high honor. And I hope we accomplish our task. The report you could pick online because the reporters got it and they posted it all over the place. I did not post that. They posted it. Thank you very much.
Meeting adjourned.